Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Soledad Guilera. I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Evidence-Based Policy at Tella University in Buenos Aires, and I'll be chairing the artificial session tonight, here at the Smart City Expo World Congress. I thank the organizers for putting together such an impressive program for the Congress, and I thank you all for joining us to address some of the most interesting and challenges topics today, the rise of artificial intelligence and robotics in the city. Today we have very distinguished speakers that will share their knowledge and experiences to discuss the challenges and opportunities that AI brings to us. We will open the session with a dialogue with Maite López-Sánchez and David Puentes to discuss the artificial intelligence strategy of Catalonia. Then Dave Gregory will deliver a keynote presentation to tell us about the power of video in a smart city. Shortly after that, we will do a networking break at the end of the room, and at 6 p.m. we will return to a fascinating panel that will discuss how cities can prepare for the upcoming artificial intelligence. At the end, I will wrap up the session with some closing remarks. Before I invite Maite and David to the stage, I would like to share some ideas with you to bear in mind as we listen to our prestigious speakers. So Richard Nine once said that artificial intelligence involves the study of how to make computers do things at which, at the moment, people are better. So in doing so, computer science, math, psychology, philosophy, cognitive sciences, among other disciplines, are combined to develop artificial intelligence. But what's really involved in intelligence? Are we talking about perceiving, recognizing, understanding the real world? Are we talking about reasoning and planning about the external world? Are we talking about learning and adapting to changing environments and conditions? Is it all of the above? Today, the advancement of artificial intelligence seems unstoppable. For some, the concept is associated to job loss, income inequality, biased data, and surveillance and control. But it's also helping officials improve traffic, inform emergency services, or prevent crime. All in all, how can cities ensure that they set in place the regulations and institutions required to make the most of artificial intelligence while minimizing its downsides? So please join me in inviting Dr. Maite López-Sánchez and Mr. David Puentes to the stage. So Dr. Maite López is a profesora titular de Universidad at University of Barcelona. She's a member of the Volume Visualization on Artificial Intelligence Research Group, adjunct scientist at the Artificial Intelligence Research Institute, and board member at the European Association for Multi-Agent Systems. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. David Puentes is the Artificial Intelligence and Business Development Director at the Government of Catalonia. He has private and public sector experience in several fields: culture, media, design, creativity, engineering, and sports. Is a telecommunications and electronics engineer, holds a master in project management and digital signal treatment, and is performing his PhD thesis.
Thank you.
Welcome, David. So it's a pleasure to have you both tonight. And to begin with this dialogue, I would ask if you, David, can briefly comment on the strategy for artificial intelligence adoption in Catalonia.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us to speak and to have us speak in the Smart World Congress. I will put in context. I don't know if everyone knows what artificial intelligence is, but I asked to my teacher about what was artificial intelligence. And we have to go to the 50s to start talking about artificial intelligence. In a summer camp of the United States, someone created the concept of artificial intelligence. I didn't know what they eat, drink, or smoke, but they create this topic that some years ago, after we're talking about. Why we are talking about artificial intelligence in cities? We are talking now about artificial intelligence because three main things. We have a great quantity of data, we have new algorithms, and we have great power of computers. So in the other side, people and society is changing very fast, and public administrations need to get answers to the questions of situations of the citizens, and they not notice it that data and the management of data is quite important. In this sense, countries started to develop a national strategy. We in 3-4 years ago we started to think about a national strategy of artificial intelligence, and because we had a lot of data, we had talent and universities with talent people and research students, and also we have the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. That is one of the most important supercomputers in Europe. But we had also tradition. We had an association that is 26 years old that cares about artificial intelligence, and we decided to start writing a strategy and to follow a plan that it's always changing, because artificial intelligence and things are always changing. It's an ongoing flight. We're flying, and we're constantly changing pieces of this plane. The national strategy was finished in February of last year, but we decided to put this strategy to a public consult. We put on a Participat.cat. Is a web service of the government of the Generalitat that allows people to give their opinion of things that government does. And now we are taking care of all the things that people has tell us, and we are ready to have a presentation. The national strategy has some priorities. Is mobility, is health, is public administration, is environment, and also productive economy. And we are based on some pillars, for example, an ecosystem, to generate talent, to invest in research and innovation, and also to take care of data and infrastructures, and also to adapt and adopt the artificial intelligence in the government. The document is open. You can have a look, and you're welcome to give your opinion. So.
Thank you, David. Can you please, Maite, tell us a little bit about the risks and opportunities that the integration of artificial intelligence brings to the cities?
Yeah, there are many opportunities. We have seen some of them here around in this fair. There is a lot of opportunities on improving mobility, for example. We have these ideas of parking being well organized, much better than now in the cities, or we have even these autonomous vehicles that are able or will be soon able to move around in our cities, to share cars. Mobility is really a big thing, and there are many exhibitors here explaining that and providing new solutions to that. But there are many other areas where this artificial intelligence can help. In cities, there is a lot of work putting sensors around the city, and this allows to gather a lot of data. So having data about what's going on in the city allows to analyze and adapt and be able to respond to some urgencies or some situations that need some particular treatment. We can also route better public services or public transportation. There are many things that we can do, but not only on the mobility side, there are many other issues. For example, even a city council can have a chatbot, an assistant, a virtual assistant, and you can ask this chatbot whether how to proceed going on with some services provided by the city council, or if you are a tourist, you can ask what is nicer to visit in the city, or if you have a family, you can ask for family situations or places to go, like playgrounds or specific events. So there are many things. We can have recommender systems that can provide us with a lot of help. So opportunities, there are hundreds or as many as you can imagine. As the slogan was said, as far as we can dream, we can apply that. But we have also some risks, as you were mentioning. So we are collecting a lot of data, and we have to be cautious about what happens with this data, in the sense that who is taking this data, how is it used, how is it shared, everything. I mean, data provides a lot of knowledge when it's processed in the proper way. So we can get a lot of advantages from this data, but we have to be aware how it will be used. And there is something related, which is the decision-making processes related to that. So we are going to analyze the data, and we are going to take some decisions. Or maybe we are going to introduce some processes for decision-making that will apply some algorithms that will use some specific criteria to take those decisions. So what are those criteria? We need to be very, very transparent on that. So it's not that machines cannot take decisions for us, but we have to be transparent on the criteria that are being applied. So as citizens, we have to be very aware of these issues and ask for transparency and the proper usage of data.
And before the session, you were mentioning something about the job loss. Do you remember that? You were telling me about it?
Yeah, this is also a possible risk. It's like looking on the future. Nobody can predict what will the future bring, so we don't know what will happen. But it's true that there is a potential for automatization. So we are seeing this with taxi drivers. We have some companies that have autonomous vehicles, and we can see a loss of their work here. No. But machines can help in many different ways. So they can help to do our works better, or they can even produce value to our society. So it's also a responsibility to decide how this value is going to be distributed or used in the society. So I don't know, it will take a lot of time, and we cannot read the future. I cannot predict, but maybe we can think of changing the model of our societies. I just opened the question. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Let me bring up the issue about the governance model that you were mentioning. The decision-making processes might be reviewed under new technologies based on artificial intelligence. So can you help us understand how the artificial intelligence can change the way cities are governed?
Yeah, we can imagine different ways of using artificial intelligence to help in the process of decision making. But there is one specific issue that I think it's very interesting, which is providing artificial intelligence together with collective intelligence, so trying to mix both. And we have citizen participation here. So as cities can be organized in a way that citizenship have a means to provide their opinions, their needs, and we can use artificial intelligence to gather this data. So the people responsible, the authorities, can use this to change their plans, their strategic plans, or we are talking about participatory budgeting. There are many processes going on cities right now in many cities around the world, which it's used, where these models are being used. Barcelona is an example, but we have many other cities around in Europe, Helsinki, or in America, or in other places. So using the people, using in the good sense, like asking people to participate in the decision process of the city or the government, because it's also used on another level of government. You can explain more on that. But the thing is that we can gather and help to debate. The thing that we have now is that the internet seems polarized, like one half of the people against the other. We can provide tools to help on the debate and helping people to reach agreements. So it's not only a matter of being polarized. We can reach a common place and we can decide together how we want to make our society or city work better.
I think that we were talking about before that there are risks and opportunities, but as Jack Nicholson says in a film, you always have to look on the right side of life, no? So in this sense, I would prefer to take the risk and do something that is not perfect, but start that don't do it. So normally artificial intelligence is linked to the job loss, control of people, face recognition, and so, bad things. But I do believe that it's not a question of artificial intelligence. It's just a question of what people do with artificial intelligence. It's not a question of technology. It's a question of the person who uses and designs the algorithms. No? And artificial intelligence is good not just for to apply, but to rethink about the human condition. And I don't know, maybe all of you have a driving license. When I'll start driving a car, and I had two exams, a theoretical one and a test drive. No one put me in the situation to kill a man, a woman, a kid in an accident. And we do this thing constantly with machines. I'm not a machine lover. I do love humans, but this is a contradiction that people have. And I want you to notice this. We are make machines and software to make things that humans never been done. So that's my point of view.
Interesting. David, can you tell us a little bit about the artificial intelligence integration in Catalonia to change the governance model? I think you had an example that you both shared with me, Decidim. Is that the platform?
Maite has a very good example. You can start and yes.
Yeah, there is this open source platform for participatory action or participatory democracy, which is called Decidim, and it's being used widely abroad and also in the Catalan government. And it's used in many places. I was mentioning about Helsinki. Quite recently, I was talking to one of the persons in charge of this project. They allocated more than 4 million for people to decide in the city how to spend this money, and it worked quite well. So more than 10% of the population of the city actually joined in the system and gave their opinions and debated on how they should spend this money. And it makes a lot of sense because it's the public money, so people has the ability to decide or to help together to decide how to spend this money. And this is a recent case, but we have other cases in Catalonia, in Barcelona. There are other cities in Mexico, in France, in many places. This is being already established. So
great. Do you want
Catalonia is a quite little country. We are about 8 million people, but the public administration of Catalonia managed more or less 200,000 people and about 6,000 buildings and 2,000 software applications that runs every day, from hospitals to traffic to several police and things like that. And it's not possible to manage a government or something without taking care of data and using computational facilities. So cities and governments, they have to use artificial intelligence to be more efficient and to do the things better with transparency and traceability, and always with ethics. And it's not just a question of algorithms; it's a question of people. And one of the key points of the artificial intelligence in Catalonia will be the education, not education at the university or high performance education from kids. And we are going to take a special care of STEM, girls in technical careers, and to avoid this gender problem. No? So this is one of the key. We call AI for good or AI for all.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting. Do you have a couple of minutes for questions? Yes? Okay, so we're going to open the floor for questions if anyone in the audience wants to ask something to our speakers. I think we can take 2 questions, right? Anyone? Okay, so while people think, I'll start. I'll make both of you one question. Is how can we regulate the development of artificial intelligence? I know that you work in academia and you're in the government. From both your perspectives, what can we do to achieve the optimal level of regulations? Not over-regulate it so that it doesn't come out as a business, or we can actually embrace the technology, but not minimum regulation that we cannot address the risks that we were discussing. So how do we go about this?
So there are a lot of ethical implications that we need to consider. So it's not only what it's legal, but that it's right and what it's wrong, what we should think about. There are some initiatives in some cities. For example, in San Francisco, they just banned the face recognition systems. No, so there are some things that can be done in a local level, and maybe it's not the best scope, but it can escalate. So it can be like a growing process where people are not. Don't like specific applications of artificial intelligence, and then maybe we can regulate that. For example, in a global scale, we have autonomous weapons. We are applying our artificial intelligence is being applied on weapons, and the United Nations are trying to regulate on that. And it's still not clear the outcome, but it sure makes sense to have some regulations. And for example, autonomous weapons is something that it really worries me, because it might sound very, very far away, but it's not. It can affect any of us in the cities or in everywhere. So definitely we need to regulate, and we need to, as you were saying, in the sense of in the application side rather than in the development of artificial intelligence. I think it's more where can it be applied, how it can be applied, what are the ethical restrictions that we are going to apply, just as it has been done with cloning people or the chemical war. No, we have put some barriers on specific technologies or advancements.
David, is there anything you would like to add?
I don't believe that regulation works. Are you recording this? I don't believe very much in regulation, because the ethical point of view of an European is quite different from the ethical point of view of people from China or South America, or is different. So I can regulate in Europe, but a new algorithm will appear in China or in any other place in the world, and this algorithm and this application will be available for everyone at a few minutes.
So we'll need global governance.
I don't know, but I don't think that the effort to regulate, I don't know if the return of investment will be okay or not will be okay. So
let me just add on that. Maybe we can look for some minimum. So we have human rights, and this is internationally accepted. So maybe we can find some minimal values, ethical considerations that apparently all humans share.
Well, Catalonian strategy follows the Declaration of Barcelona of 2017, the Montreal 2018, and also the community, the European Community Alliance. So we take care of ethics, but I think that the correct regulation won't be with law. Maybe will be with education, and we have to teach people from kids that what is right or what is wrong, and to have good people working in algorithms and taking care of the rest of the humanity. So this is my point of
Okay,
view.
so I think our time is up. Please help me give an applause to our guest speakers. Very interesting, your perspectives. Now we will welcome Mr. David Gregory to the stage. Mr. David Gregory is the Business Development Manager for the Northern Europe at Milestone Systems, a global leader in open platform IP video management software. He has more than 20 years of experience in security solution delivery, including design, engineering, networking infrastructure, project management, installation, and global commercial delivery. He will make us experience the power of video in a smart city. David, welcome to the Smart City Expo World Congress. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Soledad, for that warm welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start this presentation with a quote from a famous English writer, Samuel Johnson. And the quote is slightly modified, but it's a person who is tired of the city is tired of life. And I really like this quote because, for me personally, the opportunities in my business work, in my business life that a city brings, but also in my personal life, for my family, are so great and so vast. It really excites me, and I'm always intrigued to see how cities evolve and how they're developing. And it's just a fantastic quote to kind of sum up how I feel about life in the city and what it can deliver to us. But we know that the inner city population will ever increase. We want to attract new talent, new businesses, new people into our cities. And during that process, that organically is going to have a detrimental effect on the environment, the emissions when we talk about vehicles, and also issues such as crime. And I was looking at the Home Office statistics in the UK about the social and the economic cost of violent crime in the UK. And it was quite shocking to see what those numbers and what those figures were. And we've all experienced in our cities around Europe and indeed around the globe terror attacks and terrorist threats. And so to mitigate the effect of those attacks, our governments, our agencies are required to respond a lot quicker to these incidents so they can respond faster, and the effect of these terrible events that happen can be reduced. So when we talk about smart cities and safe cities, these are the two terminologies that I see and talk about most. And actually walking around the show and the Congress just today, both these terminologies are used. And in this presentation, I want to define where the separation is between the two, because safe city is just one element of a smart city. It's just one piece of this digital transformation journey that we need to undertake to create this overall smart city. And when we talk to our existing clients, the cities that we already work with around the world, there are always 5 key challenges that we see, that we come across. Now, of course, many different cities have different challenges, and it varies greatly. But by looking at these 5 key areas, it gives us a point to focus and a starting point to begin that digital transformation journey. So we'll take a look in a little bit more detail how AI can help in these different scenarios and what sort of technology we can use to improve how we use our cities, how transportation flows around cities, and how we can better the experience for our citizens. So if we take a look at traffic monitoring, and of course this goes hand in hand with what I mentioned before about the population in cities increases, so therefore there's going to be more vehicles, more cars, and in turn this causes a problem for pollution, for emissions. But what can AI do to help us? What can AI monitor in traffic? So first of all, it can monitor types of vehicles. So we can automatically detect a license plate and actually tie that in with what type of vehicle it is, and is this vehicle meeting the latest standards for emissions? And if it isn't, can we create and generate revenue from this by fining people? Can we advise people? Can we send letters out as a warning to stop that happening? Can we detect if people are interacting with vehicles in a dangerous way? So is somebody crossing an area or in a restricted area where there are high-speed vehicles, and that's a danger to life? So we can use AI to automatically detect those type of scenarios to alert us of that. We can also look at how vehicles move, if they stop, if they slow down, if there's congestion, and by gathering this type of data and displaying that type of data, it allows us to respond to situations much quicker. We can also look at incidents, and maybe if there's a vehicle that has a spilled cargo and causing disruption, if we have analytics and AI that can automatically detect that, we can respond a lot quicker and our flow of traffic around the city can still be maintained. Next is public safety. And of course we need to keep our citizens safe. If we are trying to attract the latest talent and business to our cities, this is a key element, because if the city doesn't feel safe and people don't feel safe, then they won't want to come to the city and take advantage of that. So AI can monitor crowds, it can count how many people are in an area. So of course, inner cities we use our public spaces for events, and we need to keep people safe in that scenario, so we can count people. We can also use algorithms to detect unusual patterns and an unusual motion. So for example, if a surveillance camera looks at a typical scene, and every day there are vehicles that come into that scene and they park, or there is congestion, and that is classed as normal, and it's a certain type of vehicle. When something abnormal happens, we can run that through an algorithm that tells us, hey, look, there's people here, or there is a lorry or a transportation vehicle in this area at a time that it's not usually seen there. So we can use that type of information to get this foresight and alerts, so we can decide how we want to respond. And then what also if we could use AI to detect specific people? And for one example, let's just say there was a child that went missing, and the algorithm could detect and we could identify where we last saw that child, and then the AI and the algorithm runs and says, actually, we've also seen this child in several other places, so we can get to that child a lot quicker and determine where they are. And this is the type of things that really help us protect the public. And I mentioned earlier about criminal and anti-terror activity. And actually, I kind of flip this over at this part of the presentation, because we talk about AI and how we get these early alerts and we can use that to help mitigate situations. But this is really about how we can collaborate between different departments. So we work with some clients that, before we were talking about our technology, if they wanted to review surveillance or a special investigation, they were still physically having to travel to different sites, to different locations to look at that data. There wasn't any resource that was centrally pulled that could be used to help them and save them time. So this is really about how we get different agencies talking to each other so they can share that data to help investigation times. And of course, we're gathering all of these different types of data sets from devices. And ultimately, what we want to be able to do is to respond faster. So we need to be able to present this data to an operator, to a user in a control room that makes sense to them. There's no point having data if we don't know how to use it, it doesn't make sense. So by presenting that data, creating automation around that, so we can use algorithms to decide if there is unusual detection or a vehicle has stopped, the next process is automated. It saves a lot of time in control rooms and makes this process just so much quicker. And when we're talking about terror attacks and major incidents, having that response time as quick as possible and as automated as possible, that time saving will save lives. And if we do all of that and we bring all of this data together, our operational efficiency will organically be better, because we are talking to multiple different systems. We have that level of automation in there. So now our control rooms can be far more efficient in that response. And this organically happens if we put all of these different processes into place. So let me tell you guys about who we are. We are Milestone Systems. Our mission is to make the world see. And our platform is a video management system. But it's a technology enabler. And what it does, it enables IoT devices, surveillance cameras, detectors, and every other device that's going to be connected as we move forward in time, enables it to connect it into a single platform, and it enables us to make use of that data. Now I want to tell you and share with you a quick story about technology. And this is a colleague of mine who was very excited to get a new car. And in preparation for receiving his new car, he learned that he could get an app on his phone that would enable him to open his car with his phone. Because, you know, it's 2019 and we don't want to use keys, right? It's really cool. Let's use the phone. So his phone that has this app is running operating system A. And that's great, that works. And he gets into his vehicle and he wants to use all of the great technology in this car. But the phone that he was using for that doesn't allow him to connect to the car. That's a different phone with a different operating system that allows him to do that. Okay, a small annoyance. So he has also a phone with that operating system. So he connects that to the car, and the car's infotainment system then doesn't give him the full capabilities of what he's looking for with this operating system. So he's got three types of technology here that work really well independently, but when it comes and ties together as a solution, it doesn't deliver and it doesn't do what he needs. It's really frustrating. And the point that I'm trying to make there is that in this age of multiple sensors and multiple IoT devices, we need to be able to have an open platform that allows us to connect all of these devices together. Because in the real life and in the real world, and you know, my colleague with his car, and great, he can't listen to music, it's not a real issue. But when we have mission critical applications and applications that are critical when we talk about terror attacks, for example, we can't have technology that doesn't talk to each other. It all has to join together. And as Milestone Systems, we have these driver frameworks that allow us to connect all of these devices together. And you can see we already integrate with over 1,000 different integrations, applications, and 8,000 hardware devices. So what does AI look like? Here's kind of a sneak preview. And you can see here, this is a camera and it's tracking vehicles. So this is a type of data that we can start gathering. And as we move forward in time, that type of data and how humans interact with that and how the different devices interact with each other just grows. And you can see here we're tracking cars, we can see signs, we can see people. So once we start collecting that type of data, we can start using it usefully to solve those challenges. Next, if we want to then go and search, this is the collaboration side, this is the investigation side. So I can search in plain language, in plain text, if I'm looking for a blue van or a person wearing a red jumper or a vehicle that was turning right on an intersection. And this video shows a real-life scenario. So this is Hartford Police, a case study of ours, and it's just filmed on a phone. But what this guy's showing here is 24 hours worth of footage in 12 minutes. Everybody you see there with a timestamp has been in this scene across that 24-hour period. And here he's looking for 2 houses that were drug dealers. And that red line there shows the paths where there's most activity. And now he draws a box around the door of the suspected drug den, and you can see how many people visit that door within a 24-hour period. And if you just see the vast amount of people that are visiting that area, that is not a normal house, right? You don't get that many visitors. So the guys at Hartford Police were old school. They were going out, they were doing their recce's, they were spending time in covert operations to find out where these drug deals were happening. Now they use technology that saves them hours and hours of time in that investigation process, and it's just an awesome example. So the digital transformation journey, it's easy to start. And when we go back to this smart city and safe city, when we take a look at our cities, most of us have already got some infrastructure, some video surveillance, some detectors that are already in use. And the good news is that we can retro-apply video analytics to those existing systems. Okay, so it's not about brand new systems, and it's not about a big budget to bring this all in at once. It's very scalable. So you can start off, you can identify challenges, and you can introduce technology that solves those challenges in this process. And we can use a combination of on-premises or in the cloud applications, even to the point where if you were interested in a particular algorithm, a particular analytic, you just subscribe to that within the cloud, and you pay to use that when you need it. So it's really flexible. It also means that as technology develops, you're also always available, have the availability to use the latest algorithm, because it grows every week. There's new algorithms developed all of the time. So we can show you all of this technology in real life. Everything that we've discussed, everything I've discussed in this presentation is available to see on our stand. And it would be great to demonstrate some of that to you over the next 3 days. So with that said, thank you very much for listening, and thanks very much.
Now we're going to have a couple of minutes for questions. Before I open the floor to our audience. Yep. Thank you. I would love to ask you whether will artificial intelligence replace the need for traditional operators to monitor systems?
So it's an interesting question. I think it's always going to be a hybrid of the two. So the need for human intervention and human translation of the machine learning that we're presented with is always going to be key. What we can use AI for is to get those early alerts, to see patterns that we may not see just by looking at video monitors and looking at data. Get those alerts, present them to us, and then we use our own judgment to respond and to react.
Good. The other question I was going to ask is, can infrastructure technology such as 5G be utilized to take advantage of using video and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a really exciting prospect when we talk about the possibilities for 5G, for example. So when we talk about the data collection from the sensors and the challenges that we've just seen in the presentation, what we're looking to do is present that data back to a user, to an operator, so they can make use. But if our users and our operators are mobile and are using the system more dynamically, we want to augment that data into the environment that they're in, if it's on a phone, on a tablet, So having that enhanced connectivity allows us to have that data throughput to then augment that onto our devices, so we can respond and react wherever we are.
Okay, sounds great. And how do you help ensure that video artificial intelligence is used to enhance citizens' experience and not used negatively?
So the guys touched on it briefly earlier. So, there's always a big debate about just because technology can, does it mean that it should? And it's really a subject quite close to our hearts at Milestone. So we sign up and subscribe and are part of the thoughts behind the Copenhagen letter. And the Copenhagen letter is a collection of technology companies, entrepreneurs, that strive to ensure that when technology is developed and used, it's used openly. Our citizens, you mentioned facial recognition earlier, our citizens know if that's going to be used and how that data is used, and actually how it enhances their life. What is the benefit from using this technology? Is it going to make them safer? Great, let's explain that and be open about that. But it's, it's really key to us. We don't want to use technology to oppress and discriminate against people. It's all about being open.
Okay, thank you, David. Does anyone in the floor have questions for David? I think we have time for one question. No? Okay, thank you, David.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay. So before we go to the break and we do a networking time in the back, I would like to wrap up the session just by sharing some outstanding thoughts that bear with me as we listen to our distinguished speakers. So Maite and David commented on how artificial intelligence can help the city's governance model by combining artificial intelligence with collective intelligence, and we can improve the governance models of cities. I think that one of the things that we need to bear in mind is the ethical implications in regulating artificial intelligence. Are we going to need a global governance for artificial intelligence? Can we have different standards from one country to another, from one city to another? I think these are open questions that we need to bear in mind. And David gently shared with us from Milestone specific examples of how intelligent video technology can help us in make cities safer. So thank you all. We're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back to an excellent panel to discuss specific examples on artificial intelligence and smart cities. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for coming back at the end of this long day. My name is Dimosthenis Karetsas. I'm a professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona and Associate Director of the Computer Vision Center here in Barcelona. And we have been asked to complement this nice session with a little bit of a discussion. And we do have a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, artificial intelligence seems to be a driving force of a wide-ranging ongoing transformation, which is both technological and social in nature. And it's not very clear what is the ethical framework on which we should base this kind of artificial intelligence driven transformation so that it is compatible with our human values and expectations. So I've been teaching artificial intelligence at the university for a few decades now, and honestly, I'm bored and tired every time that somebody speaks about artificial intelligence and they put a photograph of Terminator on screen. So, 40 years ago, people were looking forward to the time when robots will appear and will actually do the jobs for us, will actually do the work for us. No? When did that change? When did people start worrying about losing their jobs? So it's clear that there is a creative disruption going on that has to be accompanied with an equally bold social change. No? So artificial intelligence has to work for everyone, not only for a small minority of people. And it has, for example, it has to result to less working hours, not to less jobs, right? So all this comes hand to hand with the need for democratization of innovation. We have to include the people into the definition of what we want artificial intelligence to do for us. And a big challenge there is how do we explain to people what artificial intelligence really is? What kind of instruments do we have to demystify it, to explain it, right? So one of the things that I'm personally involved to is the European Network of Living Labs, which is a network of about 400 living labs around Europe. And one of the things that we are looking into is how to offer this network of 400 open participatory spaces as instruments through which we can approximate artificial intelligence to people and explain it and demystify it. And I think that we need more initiatives like that. And at the end of the day, all this discussion, all this transformation is not happening at the G7 meetings. It's happening in our meta-smart cities. So cities are the ground zero of where all this transformation takes place. And we need to discuss a lot of things about how cities should be involved in this discussion. So I'm very happy, I'm extremely happy to share the floor with 4 people that can help us enlighten us a bit about how cities are taking on this challenge. Just on my right is Mr. Moustapha Deras, who's been the Director of Research and Innovation in Berger-Levrault, has been for over 30 years of international experience in different companies, major companies like General Electric and Cadence Design Systems. And he has worked in a number of different sectors, from medical systems and simulation all the way to software and real-time embedded solutions. So he will be speaking to us today about the human factor in smart cities and how to improve on city structures which are quite efficient already. Just next to him, Mrs. Deborah Colville comes from Belfast. He's the Chief Innovation Officer in Belfast, in Ireland, and founder of Smart Belfast. Her work involves working with the government, universities and industry, the full quadruple helix, on an innovation agenda with the aim of growing Belfast's economy and tackling urban challenges. And she will be speaking to us today about Belfast strategy to deal with the opportunities and disruption artificial intelligence is expected to bring to the city. His Excellence Yunus Al Nasser is the Associate Director General of Smart Dubai and the CEO of Smart Dubai Data, one of the most innovative data initiatives in the region and worldwide. And he will be speaking to us about Smart Dubai and how data, research, and a solid ethical framework come together to achieve Dubai's main goal, which is to make it the happiest city on earth. And on the far corner, Mr. Lin Qianghu is the partner and CTO of City2 Group, which delivers and operates digital smart city solutions in China. And he will be speaking about mainstream biometrics currently used in person identification. And we'll be discussing about the challenges of integrating this kind of technologies in cities. So each one of them will give a short position statement of 8 minutes, and then at the end we'll have a small discussion, and I'm looking forward to your participation to the discussion. So I will give you the microphone when the time comes if you have any questions to ask. Thank you very much. I'll give the floor to Mr. Moustapha Deras.
Hi, everybody. Just what have been said is that I will try to make a step back and focus much more on human factors, because this is what we are looking at in Berger-Levrault, first of all. So if you look at the different definitions that we have had of the smart cities, basically there are 2 groups of smart cities, and the previous presentation were highlighting one of them. These 2 groups are basically technocentric ones and anthropocentric, meaning the first one is dealing with the fact that with technology, we will build the smart cities of the future. Why not? And the other one is much more focusing on bringing back nature and human at the center of the discussion. These 2 definitions, these 2, let's say, vision, through the last 2 decades, have been going back and forth, and we are struggling to find the solutions to implement the smart cities. We think that we are going toward a new version, let's say, of smart cities. This new version is, let's say, a kind of balance, a kind of mix and match of these 2 visions, trying to use, because we are discussing about artificial intelligence, trying to use a data-driven approach, but focusing on human interactions, using these artificial intelligence developments to focus on that specific aspect. So here we are really far from this technical, pure implementations of algorithms that are making fears. What we've heard, many people are fearing about artificial intelligence. And why we are going toward this new definition, I think that there are 2 big reasons. The first one is this: the tremendous diversity of human beings. You can see here locations, culture, languages, situations, needs are completely different. We cannot, and since 2 decades, we've never succeeded to apply, let's say, a generic approach, a completely technocentric approach that means applying the same rules, the same regulations, the same applications in all the cities, because this is the reality. So we have to start from that. But the second element is that, here I'm just giving you a thought. I think that a city is probably the most complex system in the world, except ourselves. We are more complex than a city, it seems. But the city by itself is very, very complex. It's the center of so many things. It gathers networks. There are many connections. So you see that a city, it's an interface with everything that defines human activities, human being. So we are trying to play in a very diverse universe with the most complex system that we have ever encountered. And then I think that this is the reason why we have so few examples of real smart city developments. So based on that, I will just to try to give you a small example. We have to deal in the cities with the green spaces, trees, gardens. So here are the two, let's say, declination of technocentric vision and anthropocentric vision. In the first one, you see that we are dealing with measurable things. We are dealing with costs, with space occupation, with workload, with stocks. So here, very classical tools that are already used in the cities. The other portion of the equation is that if you look at what we are looking from human perspective, is well-being, health, preservation of the environment. You can see that those terms are much more conceptual, less measurable. And here is where the artificial intelligence finally can play a very big role, because we are playing with concepts. What we have done, for example, is that we have integrated 2 artificial intelligence modules in a mobile application to try to provide diagnosis to the technicians that operates inside the city. Here you have the application. It is up and running. It's an artificial intelligence implementation, making trees recognition, making image recognition. We have just seen before me a very good example of image analysis. And it is a pure application that is dedicated to what? To day-to-day activities, to what we do every day in the city. It's not a matter of concept or a high-level vision. It is what a technician must do to maintain properly the green spaces. And probably this is where we will have to develop the new, let's say, step of artificial intelligence. I gave you here 8 domains where we have to develop, and we are working to develop artificial intelligence applications. If you focus on the red words, you will see that those words, in general, are, again, conceptual, not really measurable. What is frailty when we consider senior people? What is unadapted? How can we qualify that? What is assistance? I'm not saying helping. I'm using the word assistance. Here, I'm trying to give you the example of where artificial intelligence has to go, where we have to develop algorithms to capture these kind of things that are really conceptual. And to do that, we have to work really hard to understand what makes the sense and the meaning of those words. So, in fact, this brings you into a domain, and here I'm going to, again, one more step back. You've all heard about the artificial intelligence. And what you are hearing about, as of today, is big data set-centric artificial intelligence, machine and deep learning, high level, actionable by machines. What we are looking for, I think, is much more small data set-centric. Adaptive and evolutive learning, meaning learning that will evolve, still continue evolving when we drop the models in the nature. Day-to-day focused, actionable by humans, and we have the ethic approach to take into considerations. So I will finish by telling you that here is a representation where we are, in fact. We have implemented information technologies, we all know that. We are starting to experiment artificial intelligence, but the road is really long with research activities to reach this, let's say, dream of having a representation of what is really complex, a city. I'm finished.
Oh,
you see that? I told you.
Well done, well done. Thank you very much. Disculpa.
Merci.
Thank you.
Zero.
So hello, my name is Deborah Colville, as just introduced there. I'm the City Innovation Officer with the City of Belfast. So if you're a city leader or a city planner and AI is not on your radar, then I would suggest that you're missing something incredibly important. Why do I say that? Well,
thank you.
Artificial intelligence will radically change the nature of your city over the course of the next 25 years. And the impact, whether for good or for bad, will not only be felt on the urban economy in terms of things like jobs and businesses, but it is also likely to have profound implications across most other realms of city life. So in much the same way that electricity or the motor car radically altered the living experience of the urban dweller at the beginning of the 20th century, so too will AI force us to reimagine our cities. And it's going to happen much sooner than most of us realise, so it really is time to get ready. In strictly financial terms, the AI sector today has an estimated global value of over $1.2 trillion. Previous skepticism about the hype has been swept away by the fact that businesses are building their strategies and their products into their companies to gain competitive advantage. And so I would argue that it's not just businesses that need to think of this, but it is also the cities themselves. Why do I say this? Well, cities are the fulcrum of economic, political, and social interactions. They're the place where most of us choose to live and to work. And maybe, just maybe, they're also the place ripe with knowledge, innovation, and hope, where the world's most challenging problems will be solved. So throw AI into this rich brew and unexpected things will definitely flow. So the question for the city leader is, how do we make the most of this? The disruption is too opaque, too all-embracing, too unknowable to plan this in advance. And it's a question that we're really thinking about in my hometown of Belfast. So just a little bit about Belfast. It is the capital city of Northern Ireland. It is the second largest city on the island of Ireland. The city region is home to just under 1 million inhabitants, and at its city core there are about 330 of a population. And the city gained its wealth and reputation during the late 19th and early 20th century when it was a global powerhouse for shipbuilding, for rope making, and linen production. And yes, we built the Titanic. And like many European cities, we went through a painful period of deindustrialization. However, in recent decades, we have been very successfully reimagining ourselves as a city with a modern economy built on its booming service sectors. We have the second fastest growing knowledge economy in the UK, and generally we have been hugely successful in attracting foreign direct investment, with around 1,000 international companies choosing Belfast as their home. Our local companies and our 2 universities have been building serious strengths in important growth sectors such as health and life sciences, fintech, filmmaking, and digital media. And we have really important clusters in AI itself, with significant work in core data science, in genomics, in computation vision, and robotics, and cybersecurity. We have a workforce that is among the best educated in the world. So we really do have a good news story. And also our city landscape has transformed over the past few decades, with billions of euros of public and private sector money being invested every year. So again, yes, we have a lot to be happy about, but we do need to consider the importance of AI in our city. So while I think that AI will be hugely positive for our society, we need agile public policies in place right now to help us mitigate long-term disruption. For example, a recent study by one of our 2 universities in Belfast suggested that up to 400,000 jobs in the city of Belfast will be impacted by AI over the next decade. That's half of our jobs. So what is Belfast doing? The Belfast AI ambition is built around 3 pillars. These are the things that we believe our city needs to do to prepare for AI. Basically, we need a mission or a set of missions. This is a collective recognition and an agreement by our government, by our universities, and with other businesses in the city to work together to rally around common themes in the city. This is crucial and critical for us to move forward and get things done. And we have found that the best way to do this is to coalesce around shared missions. And these missions also provide the grist to which artificial intelligence can be most usefully applied. They represent complex public challenges with a large number of variables and data sets. So what's the point of having AI at all if we cannot use them to solve our city's problems? We have a range of missions. Some of the ones that you would expect around decarbonisation, but we're also looking at things like focusing on improving the quality of life for people as they age. We have a single health record, a single electronic health record, a single health service, and a growing number of SMEs in the field with strong research strengths within our universities. The second thing is the data. AI is a hungry beast that needs access to massive quantities of data. And no city is going to be a focus for mission-led AI work without resolving the issue of access to data. And of course, such access raises concerns around privacy and ethical application of AI technologies. But the ethics of AI begins with the ethics of data. And this is all the more important and the more complex when a city is trying to foster collaborative innovation between public sector, private sector, and academia. So Belfast has begun its journey towards an ethics-led urban data strategy that seeks to put the agency of the citizen at its heart. And we're also building a commitment with our partners to establish a shared data ecosystem that seeks to retain the value for the city and for its citizens, and at the same time fostering innovation and business growth. And over the next few years, the city's investing £15 million in the development of this key component of our vision. And the third one there is around our people. People are at the core of our approach to Belfast's AI ambitions. So I mentioned earlier the lived experience of the AI-enabled city. No one knows what this is going to be like. There are concerns that we could find ourselves either in an environment dominated by a small number of industry giants, where our day-to-day interactions become the basis of commercialization and value capture by big business, or alternatively, AI by the state in ways that might reduce our individual rights and freedoms. So how can we circumvent these scenarios? That remains unclear, but it certainly begins with the active participation of the informed citizen. And in Belfast, we are developing a number of programmes that represent only the first small steps in beginning this journey. Our programmes range from working directly with communities and the citizen to understand the implications of living in an AI-enabled city, but also extend right through to developing a common skills path to prepare the workforce for the future requirements of the AI-enabled industry. We are developing a cooperative model that retains the control and value of individual data with the citizen. Again, these are not easy challenges to solve, but cities need to be aware that they exist and to begin to marshal the resources of their civic institutions, their community organisers and educational bodies to plan how we address them. So in terms of how we are making this happen, Belfast has been working with the UK government to invest over £1 billion to prepare our city for the AI revolution. With private sector co-investment, the city is establishing 5 centres of excellence based on health, digital media, health and life sciences, and advanced manufacturing. And at the engine of our ambition is a new global innovation institute, which will seek to leverage our existing expertise in security and analytics to apply AI in the new domains of health, agriculture, and connected cities. We're establishing a £43 million smart district that will act as a crucible for real-world research, testbeds, and trials. And although this is the early days, we're also working with the private sector investors to explore the development of a data-driven health village that will co-locate patients, clinicians, and data science institutions in a high-quality environment. Finally, and just for the benefit of Demos, I'd like to end with one simple observation. Pericles is famous for saying, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. Well, in much the same way, I would say to any leader with a commitment to their city that you need to start taking an interest in AI, because it is certainly taking an interest in you. Thank you.
Mr. Al-Nasser, thank you. I was a bit over time.
Was it overtime? Sorry.
Good evening.
How much?
I need some energy in the room. I know it's very late in the evening. Yeah, good evening. Yes, we need some energy, to keep it going. I'll try to keep it short. Yunus Al-Nasser from Dubai. So today, UAE and Dubai have established itself among the leaders in AI domain. While many cities are still scratching the surface of what does that really mean in their cities, we have been transforming the city into adapting artificial intelligence. And that's due to our visionary leaders, the Vice President and the Prime Minister of United Arab Emirates and the ruler of Dubai. He wants us to transform the city to make it the happiest city on earth. And I think one mean of that transformation is how to use advanced technologies and how to use artificial intelligence into transforming people's life. How do we make Dubai the safest city to live in, and how do we create an impactful cities where we are becoming so much seamless and also creating an efficient experiences among the city of Dubai over here. And for that, we have taken an approach towards artificial intelligence, and that has 4 steps. I think today you have listened to a lot of use cases about how AI can be implemented. So in Dubai, we have our AI lab where we have identified use cases in the city. Second, we've looked at advanced data governance. We've been into this domain for the past 4 years, and we've really launched a set of serious policies and regulations into that area. Third, we went a bit advanced into thinking about an AI and thinking of how ethical we can be as a city when we are digitizing and using artificial intelligence. And we have a lot of answers to those critical issues that cities are facing. Last but not least, to have a comprehensive roadmap that is guiding the implementation of how we are leading this transformation towards an AI economy. So allow me to take a dive deep into each of these pillars and give you more examples of what Dubai is doing over there. Our artificial intelligence lab is meant to bring decision makers among the government of Dubai and to think of applicable AI use cases to the government. We've been able, together with more than 20 entities, to identify 43 use cases. Those use cases are not only one city service. Those cases are around every dimensions of the cities. We are talking about safety, security, health, education. And for that, we've also launched a set of products. So today, Rashid is our chatbot assistant, and you can call it the virtual assistant of the city. It can answer a lot of questions about the city. So each citizen or visitor that's coming to our country can use it and interact into knowing how you can interact with the city, and you know how the services are placed on the city. So again, this is one of the use cases that we have in Dubai. When we talk about AI, we must not forget that data is fueling artificial intelligence. And without having the right data in the city, you cannot implement artificial intelligence use cases. Without having the proper regulation systems that's addressing all of the confidentiality, intellectual property right of these data. How do we exchange data within the city? Those are advanced questions. And in Dubai, we have launched a set of policies and regulations. We've started in 2015 with a mandate, and that mandate was meant to make sure that the government are exchanging their data, and it's mandated that a government has to open and share its data. So these are fueling our transformation, and we went into the next level where we are creating a market and also driving a value out of those data and engaging the right constituents and bringing the private sector on board. So today our exchange is not only exclusive to the government department, we have also onboarded the private sector to exchange these data, and all of those are also advancing our implementation into artificial intelligence and also any digital experiences that we are creating in the city. The third element, as I said, a lot of ethical concerns have been raised throughout the day. If you run through the expo and the Congress over here, people are talking about ethics. And this is really an important topic to be addressed. In Dubai, any challenge that we see among digital, we turn it into an opportunity. So we said, while others are talking about ethics as a challenge, let's see how do we address it. And within 4 months, thanks to my team who have really worked and looked into benchmarking cities, we've put a full framework and also guidelines that is addressing the ethical issues of artificial intelligence. And that was not enough. We were the first city to launch an assessment tool that's helping entities whom they are interested into knowing how ethical they are when they are implementing AI, to give them a rating and to give them a set of rating on how they are performing when they are doing artificial intelligence. So what are our principles? They are basically 4, and I think we've heard a couple of those throughout the day. We are talking about humanity. We want to make sure that human values are integrated to these artificial intelligence use cases. We are talking about inclusivity. Everyone is included into these implementations, and we are not leaving anyone behind. We are talking about ethics, and also we're talking about safe AI. I think we've also heard in the previous presentation about safe AI, but what does that really mean? So let me also dive deeper into ethics. And when we are talking about ethics, it's very simple. If you would like to remember it, it is FAT system. So it is FATE. We are talking about fairness. We are talking about accountability of the machines. We want today machine to be responsible for the set of actions that they are taking in behalf of humans. We want them to be transparent in the way that whenever you are interacting with a service, that is a machine is taking a decision on behalf of a human, that is being already informed to you. We want it also to be self-explanatory. artificial intelligence is known as a black box, and we want to go from the theory of a black box to explain what does that really mean. So this is our ethical principles. We didn't stop over there. We've really enrolled it on the city of Dubai, and today we have implementations or usages of the ethical principle toolkit over here in the city. And I'll take, for the sake of the time that I have got left over here, one use case which is about it was in the health industry, and it's about patient deterioration and also providing an early alarm to the nurses who are taking care of those patients, how likely they are coming and how likely the health of a patient is going to deteriorate. So a lot of questions around such an implementation when it comes to artificial intelligence. After running after the tool, they've scored 80%. So there are, it's like it's 20% of improvements around the 4 areas that we've talked about of ethics. So these are kind of recommendations we give back to the entity who's implementing those use cases, that what kind of improvements that they do. Again, we've taken that responsibility into humanizing machine, so we need to make sure that we are also supporting organizations who are going to implement artificial intelligence to know what kind of values that they need to address when it comes to digitization in general and AI. We have a comprehensive roadmap that we've worked with, and it is a very agile approach towards implementing an artificial intelligence principles and guidelines and being more ethical about it. Today, we are going to update it after a year since it is being launched. And also, we have an advisory board who's guiding the implementation of it, which has a representation from both public and private sector, local and international, where we have big players such as Microsoft, IBM, and Google are participating and give us such a valuable information towards how to implement ethical AI in the city of Dubai. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I think we'll elaborate more on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Artificial recognition, which technology will be developed and how it will bring new change in biometrics. This biometric system will identify person just like a human, not like a machine. And combination biometrics offers better accuracy and more flexibility than any single biometric systems. Meanwhile, it is raising issues about everything from privacy to security to law enforcement to the future of the humanity. We maybe can't address all of issues, but we can balance. Companies and government agencies are increasingly using biometric system in a variety of applications, including identification, personalized experience, or surveillance. For increased security, a combination of biometrics provide greater accuracy and more flexibility. This technology offers a combination of face, fingerprint, eye, and voice traits, which can be captured at the same time for greater fraud protection and an easy user experience. Why this technology is and more and more popular now? This is one typical reason. Any single biometrics is not enough safe. Here's a chart to demonstrate the mainstream biometrics used in China. This figure sources from Forward Research of China, 2019. Let's take a look at the detail about this biometrics. First up, fingerprint. As the oldest one, the use of fingerprint biometrics of extreme is centuries old, as the need for unique identification of individuals has existed throughout history. Fingerprint scanners of technology are widely used and is one of the most common forms of biometric detection currently used in the market. However, it is slowly being obsoleted, as fingerprint identification can be replicated easily with different methods. Secondly, facial recognition is now biometric technology that uses distinguishable facial features to identify a person. Today, it's used in a variety of ways, from allowing you to unlock your phone, go through security at the airport, purchase items from the supermarket. Law enforcement agencies use the technology to uncover criminals or to find missing children or seniors. This biometric technology offers accuracy, safe, and fast results, reliably matching, and it can be used in many different applications. The main problems with biometrics, that facial recognition is that it is possible that have someone to reconstruction surgery. The last one thing of main biometrics is voice recognition. The advantages of voice recognition have made it one of the fastest growing biometrics technologies today. Speech recognition technology can be used across many different applications, which is why many companies are using this technology today. From iPhone smart voice assistant Siri to Amazon Alexa Echo applied with this voice technology. One of the main advantages of voice identification technology is the ability to use it remotely. Overall, the best combination should be similar with human brain. Therefore, voice print and facial mixture recognition works like a human being. It has 4 vital features. First of all, it is minimally invasive. This is crucial to individuals that use these security technologies. Many consumers today do not like many forms of biometric technology, since other forms seem so invasive. The second one, it offers nearly 100% accurate, and this process is remarkably fast. And it is low cost. The price of acquiring a voice and facial recognition system is usually quite reasonable. Anything has 2 sides. Multimodal biometrics also has an essential big problem linked with personal privacy. The piece of technology is faster than the piece of government regulation. And understanding the effects, we should have the responsibility to balance between convenience or efficiency and privacy. Although we can use blockchain technology to protect personal sensitive data, but the blockchain system brings another issue, typically in redundancy, efficiency, and high cost. I think it will become our focus topic in next decade. Gracias.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all very much for your position statements. It gave a very good warming up for the session. I have a lot of questions to ask. I'll try to focus on the most important ones, and maybe shout a bit because the next room is making a lot of noise. And at the end of the day, I'd like the audience to also chip in, and if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll try to pass you the microphone. So, starting with you, Mustafa. So, in your presentation, you spoke about big data and small data, and big solutions and evolutionary solutions. So there is, on one hand, there is a creative disruption that is going fast, and on the other hand, there is a softer, continuous, more respectful change, that we should expect. To what extent do you think we can actually control the pace of things? Because
in fact, we have no way to control anything. I think that I agree with one of the first intervention. We cannot control. The control will be made by itself, because software, make it big or small, it's really independent. Software is not, you will not be able to control what is going to happen in one side of the world. It will propagate in less than one click, and then you will not control anything. What you can control, and this has been explained, is the way to learn people, understand what they are doing, what they are manipulating, what they are playing with. This is the way to control, making people aware of what they are manipulating. But you will not control. Software will continue to develop and expand.
So that links very well with my next question, that was to Deborah. So in your presentation, you identified that you have a network of innovation spaces and living labs. So to what extent these spaces, which I understand that there are open participatory spaces where people can actually walk in and define challenges and work towards the solution of these challenges, to what extent do you see these spaces as instruments to contribute to the adoption and acceptance of artificial intelligence by the society?
Okay, well, as you say, the spaces that we have and the spaces that we have planned, the innovation labs and hubs around the region and around the city, is where the city will actually engage with the citizens and engage with citizen groups to really understand what the problems are at the community level. And then, following on from that, we will go through a process of challenge definition, and then bring in our universities, bring in our private sector to co-create and to develop new solutions to some of these problems. So the hubs are not necessarily about teaching anyone about AI, but it's about understanding the challenge, being challenge-led, not technology-driven. But as a result of understanding that challenge and the citizens being involved in that challenge definition, we then go on to look at, well, what are the appropriate technologies to develop the solutions to that. And of course, that very much includes artificial intelligence.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
In the case of Dubai, I saw in your last slide that the ethical principles and guidelines are already, or at least version 1 is ready.
Yes.
Right? So this is now rolling out, I suppose. So can you please elaborate a bit about how to plan to ensure that these ethical principles and guidelines will actually be properly embedded into the artificial intelligence development in the city?
I would say, the way that we are developing it, with a vision of how do we take it from guidelines into becoming a proper regulation in the city. But meanwhile, in between over here is the way that we are taking it as a soft regulation that is also bringing the both public and the private sector around it to understand how much it can benefit them from there. I think one way that we've looked at it also, how to embed it into the procurement system. Right. Whenever the government is procuring any artificial intelligence solution, to run it by the ethical system and to make sure that if it passes over there, then it's ready to be procured. A third is, I would say, a lot of educational program around what is the importance of ethical AI to the government of Dubai over here and around the implementations of it. And eventually when the guidelines, develop itself into becoming a standard or to a policy, this is where we say, a more wider implementations around it. Also, we see, the way that this gets embedded within the government implementation is that, coming around more building use cases of, or tools, I would say, of taking the guidelines into implementations, such as synthetic data. And this is one of the areas that we need to touch on it. A second is more around, I would say, looking at data anonymization or data tokenization, because that would help, again, being more ethical into the implementations that we have, detecting the bias into the use cases. So all of those toolkits that's going to be developed, and here is a call for an action for everyone to come and jump around such a use cases. I think, this is where it will help, a more wider implementation within the government and the city of Dubai, and also eventually globally.
Thank you very much. So there was quite some discussion about preparing cities to become hubs of innovation, to create solutions for the citizens. So it seems like everybody is trying to come up with a policy that kind of enables the different actors of the quadruple helix to come together and prepare innovations. Now, I'd like to turn it around and ask at least the government representatives here. From the point of view of the government, if you were the client and you could ask Santa Claus for the best artificial solution that you can get, what would be your wishful thinking? What is the kind of thing that you would buy if there was out there?
Yeah. Okay, well, one of the big issues for us is providing our politicians with information about, fine-grained, in-depth information about their constituents and their communities. So if there was a product that could actually provide that information, we're constantly providing reports and graphs and analysis and lots of sources of information to our politicians. But if there was something that kept up to date with the changing demographic, with the changing needs of communities and parts of the city, that could provide this 360-degree view for politicians, that would be really helpful for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think for Dubai, I would go back to the mission, and our mission is we want Dubai to become the happiest city on earth. And I think, our wish, for artificial intelligence or any digital implementation that's happening in the city to contribute towards, people's happiness. So this means is to be more centric around the citizens of Dubai and also United Arab Emirates. Second, I would say, with artificial intelligence and digitization, we need to build a new economy around it. So it should support, the economical development so that we sustain these models and we have more implementations that is gathered around them and in a way that is adding to the general gross value add of the economy of Dubai. Last but not least, I would say, again, supporting the decision makers. Today we do have, we are with the advancements of the cities, a lot of complex decisions has to be made, and to augment the decision makers with the right tools that can support them to take the right decisions on behalf of the humans that are living in these cities is really important for us. So these are my wishes, to these cities.
Nice. Thank you very much. And in pretty much every presentation, there was a special mention about the central role that citizens should have in this artificial intelligence-driven transformation. So I'd like to have a small comment from everyone about how do you see citizens being involved in different processes, not only from the government side, but also from companies, in terms of developing new solutions. What are the mechanisms, the instruments you have to get people into the innovation process? Whoever wants to start.
Well, I'll start with the challenge. Sorry, I was just going to say, start with the challenge definition. It needs to, if we're going to be challenge-led and provide solutions for the city and for our citizens, they need to be involved in talking about what are the very real issues that they are facing on a day-to-day basis.
So challenge definitions, being the problem owners.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
The issue we have is that when you deal with the citizens, they will use whatever they want. And we will have this difficulty to provide, first of all, right solutions, but in the duration. And finally, we will have no way to, let's say, oblige or force them to use those solutions. Mm-hmm. So I think that your question is questioning the Holy Grail. So how can we solve this incredible question that how do we guarantee that we will find the right solution that will last a long period of time and will be used just to serve, for example, their well-being, let's say. So I honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
Any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. I think the way that Dubai have always approached citizen engagement is to bring to address the digital gap between what the city is trying to accomplish and also understanding what our people's need. One way that the Emirate of Dubai have looked around it, through providing a pulse of people's opinion into the services that the government is offering, and that was a happiness meter. So this is one way of engaging and collecting feedback, and again, being data-driven, a lot of data can be generated by collecting those feedbacks, and again, feeding it, having it as a feedback loop into how do we improve services, or what kind of services that we have to put on our top priority of our agendas to be improved in the city of Dubai. That was one way. Another, I would say, our city experience lab was one way to engage with the citizens in order to understand their needs when it comes to the services that the government is offering them, to understand how it should be designed from citizens' perspective, not from the government perspective, was really important. So those are, again, advanced ways of how do you design your digital experience around the city is really important, and to have the citizen together with the government designing those services is really essential. I think when it comes to artificial intelligence ethical guidelines, we've recently published throughout our social media channels to the public to come and engage with us into defining or refining, I would say, the guidelines with taking into consideration their point of views and what should be considered around artificial intelligence ethical guidelines and uses in the Emirate of Dubai. So there are many ways of challenging. It depends on what are your priorities and how do you allow it to happen in your city. And I think in our cases, we are very much driven with collecting these feedbacks and embedding it within our system so that we continuously enhance it.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there any question from the audience? Anybody who wants to? Yeah?
Yeah, Lin Kuang, you said that we'd be kind of talking about the biometrics debate for the next 10 years. And my question to the whole panel is this: does the biometrics, facial recognition, gait recognition debate, is that dominating the public discourse on the ethics of AI and stopping us debating some of the other issues and really distorting the debate?
Thank you very much. Anybody wants to?
Okay. Excuse me, can you rephrase your question?
You want me to rephrase my question?
Yeah.
So my question was, does the public concern about, say, facial recognition, is that distorting the debate about other AI techniques and some of the benefits that AI can bring that don't involve biometrics? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense, Lin Kuang?
It's a great question. I think I have no idea to answer this question. Sorry.
Well, I think that it's, well, I don't know if anybody wants to say something. But
well, it's certainly an issue that has started to bubble up in our city as we have started to use technology to monitor parks and open spaces and to understand behaviour in open spaces. And of course now we're getting the citizen asking the questions as to, and there are cameras involved in some of these situations. The citizens are starting to go to their politicians, who are starting to come to us to talk about what's happening to our data, where do we get a say in some of these technologies and how they're being adopted by the city. So I think unless we get on top of the data framework for the city, the ethical use of data, involve citizens in that and get the politicians to agree to this as well, then it is actually going to distort what we do going forward.
There was another question back there.
Sorry.
I was curious about Dubai's AI ethics policy. Specifically, what is meant by accountability of AI? I was just quite curious about that.
Thank you very much for your question. I think, again, as I said, while we are implementing all of those use cases, and let me take it and simplify it in a way. So today, if you're going to any service center, if you've been offered with a service, the service center is responsible and accountable for the services being provided to you. But if you take that and replace it with machines, so whose accountability is there? and is the machine are now accountable in behalf of the humans who used to provide you the services? So this is an important question, needs to be answered. When machine is taking a decision on some elements of your life, and that is might be positive or negative, are you really then making sure that these machines are accountable about the decisions that's being made? So these are really important, fundamental questions that we need to answer when we are implementing that. We don't say it's like the machine will be responsible, because at the end of the day, there is someone is also behind the machine who's training these algorithms, who are developing it for you. So we want to make sure that organizations behind it also are still taking and keeping those responsibilities and accountability on them, so that when you put it on the machine, the responsibility doesn't go over there. It's still, there is an organization behind it who's really taking that accountability. So that's what's meant around it. And please, if you'd like to know more about it, visit our website, smartdubai.ae. The full guideline is available over there with full explanation that can give you more about our guidelines.
I would like a final quick comment from everybody in the panel on the ethics issue. So, all cities are defining their own ethics principles. To what extent the cities is the right granularity to define this? Is this possible? I'm trying to recover the discussion we had before in the first part of the session. Is it possible to define a common baseline for ethics which is universal, in the same way like we have a Creative Commons license or a human rights kind of?
I would say yes. Our attempt that have started this year was about to start the implementation on the Emirate-wide of Dubai, but we always kept in mind that we definitely need this collaboration to happen on a much more regional or global level, by bringing the advisory board around it, having the participation from both local from government and private sector, and also local and international presence in it, I think is one way of taking it to that level. Second, I think this platform, Smart City Expo, is a wonderful place where we can share thoughts around these ethical practices, where we are clearly discussing it, but then to put around it some concrete example of how those collaborations can happen from guidelines point of view, or from developing tools that cities can have it as an open standard now and can be shared around it. And I think this is where we are taking it next from Dubai's point of view.
Possible?
No.
Yes.
How about you?
Yes, I think it is possible. There are sort of basics and principles that need to be applied to ensure that we reflect the diverse nature of our cities. But the other side of it is we need to understand the different cities, different characteristics in cities, different appetites from cities and from citizens, and we need to put these things into the hands of citizens for them to test some of these new ways of working out, some of these principles out in their own communities and in their cities, so that so we can put things in front of them and ideas in front of them and standards, but they're the ones that have to take them and test them and approve them.
Thank you.
No.
It's not possible.
No, because everything is said. So sometimes we have to say nothing, in fact.
Perfect. So nothing more to add then.
Nothing. Yeah.
Thank you very much to all four of you
Thank
for
you.
the very nice discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in wrapping up the session, I would like to thank all of our speakers that were great this evening, and each of you that stayed this late with us, and would love to bring up some ideas as key takeaway messages. From Maite and David, I would like for us to remember that they discuss how artificial intelligence is changing the governance model in the city. And we discussed some opportunities and challenges, but basically we thought about how education can play a key role in addressing the challenges. David then from Milestone told us a little bit how an open platform for AI can enable video to make cities safe. And in this sense, Mr. Wu showed how a combination of face, eye, fingerprints, and voice in biometrics systems can offer more flexibility and accuracy to uncover criminals. Mrs. Colville also shared how Belfast is building a resilient urban economy for the AI era. Well, she mentioned they have 50% of their jobs at risk, and this was straightly connected to what Mr. Mustafa highlighted as citizens being the center and the core of smart cities. We need to have cities that are human constructions, and he distinguished the technocentric versus the anthropocentric approaches to building cities of the future with a new approach, the link-centric. Then Mr. Al-Nasser left us thinking about the purpose we would like to fulfill when integrating technology. And all, in closing, I would love to highlight what my colleague Dimos said at the beginning of this panel, that democratization of innovation and what we want artificial intelligence to do for us is the key of the question. Thank you all. Have a good night.